Okay, we're back again for round two.
We're going right into it.
Well, actually, first, for some continuity's sake, and to answer the question on people's minds, how did you do at poker?
Oh, terribly.
Terribly.
It was my first time there. There were four other players. Um, it was it. I wasn't. I was the third person out of five. So, and the other two, it was. I guess I was confused that we were playing a cash game.
They didn't make that clear. That seems like something you'd want to know.
I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to make waves when I got there. But it was $40 buy-in, five of us all together. I was the only person to rebuy. And then the final two just decided to call it quits, and one walked away with 90 and the other walked away with the rest. So, whatever. I don't know. It was a little slow. It was slow.
So
And I tried to play like 80% of the hands. But Daniel,
you tried to play 80% of the hands?
That's an exaggeration. But Daniel, I got called down time and time again by like someone who had a pair of threes. There's like nothing but overcards. There's tons of draws. I'm just betting into it, and this multiple people called me down with bottom pair or a pocket low pair.
That's strange. Unless they'd seen you do this before.
They hadn't. This was my first time playing with all these people.
I guess that's the difficulty.
The final hand that knocked me out. I made a great call on this guy. He had nothing, and I just kept betting, and he just kept calling, and he went runner straight on me. Four to the straight on the board. He went runner straight on me. I called him down with sevens. I knew he had nothing. I knew he had nothing, and I just kept pumping it in there, and he kept calling me down with sevens. You can't bluff bad players. So then what am I going to do? Sit there until I get aces or kings?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. Like, that's not poker.
I guess that's fine.
It's not fine, but it is, how it went down. So
yeah. So
I'm not very good at cards.
Huh?
You're very audience. I'm not very good at cards.
I think. Yeah,
I lack the discipline.
You might agree with that.
I just want to have fun.
Well, that's not how the pros are all business. But anyway, while you were doing that, I did.
How was your evening?
I did what you. Why did I do this for you? Just watch.
Because I'm gonna watch a Woody Allen movie now.
Good. You're gonna actually watch a bunch of movies, I think.
Well, hold on. We're gonna go one for one through this whole thing.
I don't know if we should do that. You know what? In this movie conversation that we had, I asked you a lot of questions about your taste in movies. I didn't really. I mean, only incidentally did I talk about what I like. I think maybe you might get the impression I have I don't know, somewhat higher, loftier, more pretentious taste.
No, I wouldn't make that claim.
Well, I wouldn't say it's pretentious. I think I just have seen a lot of good movies. Now, I don't know why, if you say you care about movies, here's someone, I mean, how many movies do you think you've seen in your life?
It's quite a few.
Well, I did a thing.
I don't think I've seen as many as you.
A couple years ago, I decided to do something that I guess I'd heard for years. Someone must have told me that their cousin or friend in taking film at NYU was given an assignment to list every film they'd ever seen in their whole life. And really think about it, really try to get them all, which is a difficult thing to do. Yeah. And at some point, many years after I first heard that, I was bored. I really sat down to try to do that myself. And I made a list. You have to be clever about it. I took some list of famous directors from the internet, and I just proceeded, like, which ones had I seen by all of these people.
That's an interesting way to
That
go
was the
about it. I think
first
I
thing
think
that
I
I.
would try to attack it chronologically. Like what movies came out this year? Did I see those? What
Yeah, that'd
movies
be
came out?
easy for me. You know what? It'd be easy for me to name every movie I'd seen made prior to 1940.
I don't
But
think I've seen any movies prior to 1940.
but then and maybe I could do, it would be a lot more movies made prior to 1950. But then it would start to get very hard because I'd seen a lot of movies. So then I did it by. So look, I went on every one of these people's IMDb
Mhm.
profiles to make sure I'd gotten every single one that I'd seen, and then I started doing it by genre.
How many Nicolas Cage movies have you seen?
Well, he is an actor, and
Yes, he
I
is.
did not list him. He was not one of the directors, but I did
Just director.
at the end of all the genre lists, I then took a list of actors, of famous actors who'd been in a lot of movies to try to, and anyone that I had missed and forgotten. And there were movies like, I should bring up this list, but I did probably list Nicolas Cage. Probably I saw the National Treasure movies and I forgot to list them under.
Have you seen
uh,
Moonstruck? Moonstruck was really good, but
You know what? Actually, that movie came up just last week. People, my brother was talking about it. That's a good movie, and I haven't seen it. I have
I
not seen
always wanted to do. I always. Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, there's a great monologue about Nicolas Cage's hand. I always wanted to do in our AWI class. It's
and
it would have been way over the top. It would have been terrible. I
I,
see
I
why I
I
never was
do
allowed to.
like Nicolas Cage. I think there's a right way to use him, and what do I like him
Youth
in
Rage.
Raising Arizona and this David Lynch movie Wild at Heart. Is that, or wait, is that the movie? I think it's the movie I'm thinking of.
I think you're
Um,
thinking of Con Air,
I've seen Con Air.
The
Uh,
Rock with Sean Connery.
Maybe I should tell you. I
Very
went
nice.
through my history of movies real quick. I started out. I think I told you with the like Disney movies from the time I was 2.
Sure.
Right, and just seeing whatever movies were there for me. I think my parents, especially my father, took me to a lot of movies when I was a kid. uh, some movies stretched the limits of what I maybe were either appropriate or what I was prepared to appreciate. I remember that we went to see the Harrison Ford The Fugitive in the theaters in 93 or whenever that was. I think my first rated R movie was Speed.
Ooh,
Saw that when I was in like second grade, and that
that's a
touched
fun
off
one.
this desire for thrills and action. So for a while, I went. There was a video rental place right down the street from me, and I started going through the action section, whatever they would let me rent. I mean, I think my mother didn't mind me watching rated R at some point. So by the time I was in fourth grade, I started watching just action films a lot. Uh, and then I don't know. I saw all the Bond films. I just went through that whole section, uh, and at some point, I feel like I got it with that.
You had
And
had enough.
yeah, I don't know. I wonder how this happened because I moved to. Um, I must have moved to. I must have. There was a sci-fi section. I saw a couple of those, and not too many. I moved to the drama section because you know what, I said I want to see more good movies or something, and not that I can't even remember what I might have gotten to. I just know that by the time I was 12, and it took a while for me to have a DVD player. There was always this movie on the shelf. People had told me, I'd heard weird things about it, about whether it was rated X or something. This movie, A Clockwork Orange, by Stanley Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I had a DVD player, and I watched this movie, and it was just incredible. And I watched all the Kubrick movies. This was one of the major revelations for me in film. I loved Stanley Kubrick. That his movies spoke to my mentality about how a person should make a film and tell a story. I saw all his film, and that's when I started fashioning myself a kind of person who knows about film, having just seen that, and seeking out. Then I started seeking out the movies that Kubrick said that he liked, because I started reading interviews that he liked Fellini and Bergman particularly, and maybe a few of the Japanese directors. That's when I started to seek out some of those movies, and then I met a very good friend of mine. In fact, that friend who lives in Philadelphia now, he introduced me to some very different films, horror films, and all the well, I don't know what you want to call them, but a different kind of thrill, though, a different kind of thing.
Certainly.
That because I guess I'd seen The Shining, but not. And so we went through Halloween and the Friday the 13th, and a lot of them are not that,
So like the slasher films.
But and a bunch of other kinds of things, and that's around the time I probably started seeing Tarantino's films, and that was another thing for me. And then when I went to college, I then suddenly had access to a university library with a very good collection of films. And somehow when I didn't quite fit in, I didn't find my group of people for a while. I took advantage of that rental. I just started seeing every movie on people's good lists.
How did you went off other people's lists?
Other people's lists, and if I really liked a movie by a certain director, I just started going through their whole
catalog. Would you do it chronologically, or would you do it by
as much as I could? So that's probably when I made, even though I'd seen I'd seen a couple of Woody Allen's films before. I mean, I'd grown up with Take the Money and Run and Bananas, and I had seen Annie Hall. That's when I probably went through all of his films.
And you recommend starting with Take the Money and Run and then Bananas?
I do. Yes, those are great. That's the beginning, and those are his great early comedies. I don't want to get off track a little bit. He started his career with 5 comedies, of which I think his best are his first 2. But anyway, and then that's when I took a film theory class.
Oh, nice.
My only class in so-called film theory, something I barely appreciated at the time. I thought I really believed in film criticism. I never knew what they were talking about film theory, like how does film actually work or communicate, like taking apart what is the film vocabulary in order to understand what's going on. I was there to, with my theories of storytelling and irony and character to, what's a good movie and what isn't. And only maybe much later did I really appreciate what we went over in that class. But we saw a lot of interesting movies in that class, and a few much older movies. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I saw some Hitchcock movies. I saw some movies by Godard, a very different kind of director, very political. Very, very different, almost like anti-filmmaking.
You mentioned that what you learned there didn't really resonate until later with you. Would you recommend film theory, at least as you?
Well, I was actually hoping that some of what is important in that that came out in the essays we read or talked about in that class would come out in our discussion of other movies. What do I mean? Something that made that clear about movies to me was actually not about movies. If you've ever seen, I don't think you have, but the Leonard Bernstein Norton lectures at Harvard that he gave in 1973. They're on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, every morning, Daniel. That's how I start my day.
Listen, he gave this series of lectures.
You gonna drop me a link?
On music. If I knew how to do that, I'll send you something, okay? Yeah. But you just put in Leonard Bernstein Norton lectures, you'll find them. It's 6 lectures. Each one is long. It's about 2 hours long, okay? and he's talking about, he tries to describe to people what is classical music about, and what is the direction of classical music. And he starts out, he explains he's going to try to tell you how to listen to music, how to read or interpret music using an analogy with linguistics, that language is the way language, how does language communicate? It is built out of these basic sound components, these phonemes, into syntax, words, and there's a vocabulary here that that then becomes semantics. What is the meaning, communicated meaning through what it's telling you? And it's starting out with, he starts out with notes, and what's the relationship of one note to another, and why do these two notes together make, these two tones make a sound that we think of as happy or optimistic? Why do these, this is more, is angry, something's wrong? And how you use these components, that and timing, and then how you layer it with, something that repeats or not. I mean, these are great lectures. This explains that this actually is like a theory of music. This explains why you get some kind of idea of why a certain feeling from a certain kind of music. You begin to understand how people wrote this music. Mm-hmm. And the same thing can be done with cinema. How do movies work? What is their vocabulary? It's a little bit more complicated because there's both image and sure. sound. There's what you're seeing on camera and how you're seeing it, and then there's movement and what you're paying attention to. How does it work? How is it different from storytelling in a book? How is it different from storytelling in the theater? How is it different from, I don't know, TV, which is very similar, but because of the constraints or the time, different attention, it's different. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is the first thing people should figure out. I mean, I think Hugo Munsterberg was the first to write a book that took film seriously in like 1915, saying film is different from theater. It's a different art form. And for example, he pointed out, look what you can do, what you don't do in theater, and what you do in film is you have a choice where to focus the viewer's attention.
Sure.
You are telling what the viewer is, what is important, as opposed to in the theater, it's all there, and it's a totally different kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, so we watched that in that class. We didn't read Munsterberg, but we read. I saw the silent films of Sergei Eisenstein.
Okay.
First time. And I remember I really didn't like him. I really thought he was not doing storytelling the way I wanted, but there were a lot of movies that we watched that were not fundamentally about storytelling.
What were they about?
Huh?
What were they about, if not storytelling?
Well, some of them were really about hammering a political message, or something I would have said before that class is not, I think, the highest aspiration for film, but I don't know, it's what some people want to do. But something I'd never
artists create art, just
something I'd never paid attention to before as much, although I loved the cinematography of Stanley Kubrick, was the power of a certain image. And maybe it is okay not to have such realism, but I don't know, this Ivan the Terrible, brooding, thinking what he should do. He's beset by enemies on all sides, and he needs to keep the kingdom in check. Meanwhile, there's a mural behind him of the face of the eyes of his ancestors are looking down upon him, and things like this. Okay. I love the films of Hitchcock, though. And for a while, I was part of this film society when I was an undergrad. And I don't know, I sought out more, but then I got into conflict with the people in this film society. By the time I was I thought I should be the one to take it over. And there was a 50-year
they disagreed.
She was in charge. Yeah.
An attempted revolt that
there was a revolt, and the priorities got totally distorted. I think there was no longer about showing very great films. It was about we were desperate to stay alive with money, and so doing tie-ins. Oh, if we show Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, we can get money from the neuroscience department and whatever. Okay, all concerns I was not happy about. And then when I went to graduate school, I learned, I finally met someone who seemed to know more about film or had a very good taste in film. My PhD advisor again, and he exposed it to tons of movies, um, some old, some by other directors. The power of the image and the certain kind of story. I got back into some of those Eisenstein films. He told me about this director Parajanov. He told me about a lot of these Japanese films I'd never seen before. The films of Peter Greenaway. So I've been through many cycles. Oh, I guess I totally, I used to think I wanted to be a director just like Stanley Kubrick and then just like Tarantino. Tarantino eventually, in my estimation, changed. I think he's only communicating mostly with other movies.
What do you mean with other movies?
Well, he's gone through actually a second phase in his career, I think, but his movies, which I loved so much as a teenager, go
And when
off
are we
of,
talking as a teenager? Are we talking Pulp Fiction and earlier?
so Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and then Kill Bill, which was a huge revelation to me, 2003, 2004.
Mhm.
And when I saw Kill Bill, it was like, I wasn't there yet, but I was seeing it was like would have been the movie if you would just let me get a little further. It would have been the movie I would have wanted to make. That's
A little further. How would you have pushed Kill Bill a little further?
No. If I had been allowed to progress with my taste like a Tarantino, I mean, how am I saying this really? Because that's such a great film, but I then see his movies. What is he doing? He is going off. He loves movies, and he is taking those old movies and what was in them and responding to them, dialing up, finding he wants to do the things that they did well even better, and he wants to insert his own sense of irony, and because people don't talk that way, look how people actually talk, or there's a little bit of that. There's a sense of humor there, and I understand that. And yet with those movies, I felt now that he doesn't have as much to say that's relevant to me about life in the way that a person like Woody Allen has to say, or a director I really like now, Lars von Trier. Really
Yeah, you've mentioned that name a few times. I'm gonna have to do some diving into.
So there's a lot of filmmakers that I like. I barely even I like I like some silly movies. I like some high concept movies. There are movies that are famous that I can't stand. That's sort of my arc of how I got to where I am with movies. And I made this list, and I've seen, I don't know what this number will mean to anybody, but I'd say about 1,800 films in my life.
Seems like a lot.
That's what it comes down to when you.
I don't think I'm in that ballpark. I think I'm in the maybe 500s. Just spitballing off the top of my head, maybe more, but 1,800 seems like a lot.
So here's my question to you: why don't you, if you say you love movies, why don't you just take my suggestions as someone who's knows it and has seen these things and thinks things are great? Why don't you just see the movies I tell you to see?
I don't know. I think I've tried watching some of your movies.
Tried?
Yeah.
What did you try?
Ace in the Hole.
And you couldn't watch it? What, it was boring or something?
I don't know if I'd say it was boring.
I don't recommend boring movies.
Okay. I was actually just looking up. I was trying to find Take the Money and Run on some streaming service. I found Bananas on Amazon, but I can't find Take the Money and Run anywhere.
Do you know that Take the Money, Woody Allen, I'll just tell you something about Woody Allen. He's come up before in our conversation about stand-up. I mean, he started doing stand-up in 1960, went on The Tonight Show in 62, performed at the White House for Lyndon Johnson and danced with his wife. He was like the biggest thing by 64. In 65, by 64, he was invited to write this movie and made this movie that came out, What's New, Pussycat?
Sure.
Which he wrote and then disavowed because he feels like the director completely screwed it up, made, you know, a 60s era comedy that, you know, went against his vision. And then he did a couple of silly projects, but didn't want to make his own movie until someone would just let him do it. And his first time out, he got money from, I forget who, but he made this movie, Take the Money and Run. He essentially invented the mock documentary.
Mockumentary.
I always say the full thing. Mock documentary.
Why do you always say the full thing?
I don't know. Just because I hate these. No, I don't know. Of course, I say mockumentary sometimes. I just think words, sometimes you say them too many times, you forget where they come from. Self-taken images of oneself. How I say selfies. Anyway, great. Take the Money and Run still holds up today, and Bananas is one of my favorite films of all time too. And I could tell you why.
If I can't find Take the Money and Run, should I just go right to Bananas?
You could go do them in either order. His next three movies, forget the order. Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, Sleeper, and Love and Death. Some people love those movies, but they don't quite do it for me. It would take a while to explain why.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
But Annie Hall was another turning point in his career. I really would see, you know, if you're willing to just see all of them, you could. I could give you a list with the highlights.
Well, it
you know
depends how many Marvel movies you're gonna watch.
Oh, I guess we have to talk about that because that's what we.
I mean, we don't have to.
Well, we set that up. I just want to. Maybe I can read off.
Well, you can screen share too, Daniel.
Yes, I can do that if I let me. Okay, how do I?
Bottom, move your cursor. Bottom, share screen, green.
Oh, that's not what I want to be looking at.
It should display all your windows, and then you can just select which one you want to share.
When I go to share screen.
Yes, sir.
Advanced sharing options.
It should just.
No. Let me just if I hit share screen.
Yep.
Oh, and here
pops up your windows. Yep.
Here we go.
Hey, Daniel, pull that up for me.
Here we go. Okay, so now you can see this list I made of essential films.
I think you shared this with me before. I don't think it was sent to me. I think you showed it to me.
I didn't send it to you. I just want to.
These are Daniel Rubin's essential films.
Yeah, so I made this list. It must have been at least 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Is this the recommended viewing order too? Start with Fantasia and Dumbo?
No. This is the order of which I just came up with it and kept it in my head. So I guess it starts with some Disney films. But this is a list of movies that it just occurred to me that are in my mind somehow. They're some of them are great. Maybe some of them are not the greatest. Not every great film is on this list. But these are the films that I either are in my head or I talk about with people that, or they're the major example of.
And is the entire Woody Allen collection featured on these lists?
Not the entire Woody Allen collection. So you can see up here in this second column.
I saw there was a big chunk. Bananas, Annie Hall.
Starting at 44. Take the Money, Run, Bananas. So I skipped the next three. Annie Hall, The Purple Rose of Cairo, Hannah Intercept. You know what? I might have included the Stardust Memories now. Maybe these fluctuate.
Your opinion changed.
Radio Days, Crimes and Misdemeanors, New York Stories. I think we watched New York Stories.
We did.
Manhattan Murder Mystery, Mighty Aphrodite, Deconstructing Harry, Celebrity, Sweet and Low Down, Small Crime Crooks, Match Point, Cassandra's Dream, Blue Jasmine, Irrational Man. That's the Woody Allen part. This movie, I Vitelloni, is a Fellini film. I think that Kubrick, in that interview I mentioned, it's listed as his favorite film of all time. I went to see it. It was a very different kind of film from the kind that he made. That was very strange to me. You know, here is Kubrick, and I think his films are great, and he seemed to be chasing or wanting, or he loved a very different kind of movie.
Mhm.
Nights of Cabiria is also by Fellini. I might include a few more. The Leopard by Visconti. So,
I see some Scorsese there.
yeah, Goodfellas, Casino, The Wolf of Wall Street,
Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver too, and The King of Comedy,
Yeah.
which is a very important film for me. And that and The Joker, boy, those are hard hitting because it's that could almost be me.
Which part?
The part of this
Not
guy. Well, I don't have all the problems that
not the murderous rage, right?
I haven't gotten there yet, and I don't have all of his problems. But man who struggling, tried making it as wants to make it as a comedian. I understand that. Is there anything on here that you see and want to talk about? This movie Weekend was another one of these major revelations to me. One of the movies by Godard that I saw in that film theory class.
Weekend at Bernie's.
It's not Weekend. People have made that mistake before. I recommended that movie to. This is a totally different kind of movie. That's this French couple. They're going away for the weekend to her parents' house, ostensibly to make sure that they are included in the guy's will before he dies. Actually, they've both been sort of poisoning him slowly. And in fact, each of them has their own plan to screw over the other to get the money. But none of that matters because as they drive out into the countryside, society just totally breaks down over either maybe it's the traffic jam or maybe it's the weight of capitalism that Godard hates so much. And they enter this Alice in Wonderland journey where they can't seem to get anywhere, and they encounter various people spouting philosophy. I don't know if I'd include it as this. Now I like a different thing in film, but it's a very anti the virtues of Hollywood films.
I just added Being John Malkovich to my Netflix list. I saw it's available on there. I see that The Terminator's featured, but not The Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Oh, that's an interesting. I can't fathom that choice. Possibly I meant Terminator 2. Oh, I like.
Well, why not both? Update the list.
I guess I have to update this list. Is there anything I want? Well, some of them are not single films. I say all the films of Hayao Miyazaki, which we haven't talked about, and
I'm not familiar.
Films of Terrence Malick. Here's the Lars von Trier section. And there's some comedy.
Oh, Groundhog Day, and What About Bob?
Yeah, let's go. I love these movies. Groundhog Day. It's a very very inspiring movie. Actually, I could be that Bill Murray character from Groundhog Day. Honestly, his attitude.
I could see that.
Mine. And by the way, that's also why I told you to see this movie, Ace in the Hole, a movie that speaks to me, a movie that was recommended basically by Woody Allen through one of his interviews, a movie from, I believe, 1951 by Billy Wilder with Kirk Douglas, where Kirk Douglas plays this sort of hotshot newspaper man who's been kicked out of all the major cities in the country because he keeps doing things he's not supposed to do, publishing scandalous articles and
are you spoiling this for me?
No, I'm not. Well, you should have watched the movie already.
I don't think I discovered that was why he was. I was under the impression that he'd just been fired for incompetence or
in his first speech, I think, where he says you want to make $100 a week or something, then
right. I understand. I remember that part, but to me,
for $100,
he was
$200 a week newspaper man.
He was very he was pitching himself. He was he was speaking very quickly. He was trying to be very smooth, and I didn't trust him.
Didn't
So
trust.
I didn't believe his story. I mean, he was telling it, but I didn't believe his story.
Well, I
I
think
think it was his version of his story, but I don't think it was the whole story.
I think you get the impression of this character, he's very good at what he does. It's just that what he does makes people angry. He's not willing to play the game. He's not willing to do the so-called right thing. He's out for himself, and it's gotten him sent all the way out to Albuquerque where he doesn't belong. And then this resonated with me when I was in Ithaca. And all he longs to do is get that big story that will launch him out of Albuquerque and back to New York City, back to the real hustle and bustle, the real life. And he ends up waiting there a long time. He's sick of it, and then he finds his big chance when he's sent to some story he couldn't care less about, but along the way, there's a guy trapped in a cave. And he says, this is his chance, making this a big story, making it a huge spectacle, even if it means, this guy might have to spend a little more time in the cave.
See, and I don't trust him.
Yeah, just about.
My instincts
you have to
correct.
identify. See, but here's the kind of movie. Yes, it's clearly about some of our choices that have a moral dimension. But if you're the kind of person who says you already didn't like this guy from the get-go, you're probably not going to like this movie because you were just dismissing him the whole time. But if you're like me and you sort of identify with him, you're going to, it's sort of like, where does your identification begin to wane? Or is there a certain point where you think this guy has done the wrong thing? And the same thing with one of my favorite of Woody Allen's movies, Match Point. Okay, so we didn't talk about all these movies. It'd be a lot to go through.
I'm sure each one of these could be its own discussion.
Yeah, probably. Do you ever see this, just the Linklater film? I really like Linklater, and probably I could have put on a couple more, not just the Before Sunrise and Waking Life, but Dazed and Confused.
I've seen Dazed and Confused.
And everybody wants some. Nobody saw that movie, although it's almost like a pseudo sequel to Dazed and Confused. School of Rock, a very different kind of, much more commercial film. Do you ever see that?
Surprised to see that on there. No, I've seen parts of it. I haven't seen it in its entirety.
It's such an inspiring movie, and it's such a great portrayal of.
Also a hustler con man.
Yeah, and I think that's when you say there's a part someone was born to play. Jack Black, that I totally. This is him almost. I mean, I completely believe this character, and it's a very particular kind of character. And it's also showing you, a whole different. You watch the movie; it's a whole different approach to teaching. Another a person I know once told me, sometimes these people who love film say that they love this or that film that's known for being great, but how many times are you really going to watch that? Look at this movie, School of Rock. This is a movie that, whenever it's on, from time to time, you sit down and watch it and you just enjoy it every time. I mean, we should give some weight to that. I
think that deserves more weight than it's given. Absolutely.
Stop sharing here.
I think some would prioritize that as, one of the reasons they like movies. I mean, they just rewatchability,
Well, that will be something in it. Now we have to wonder, why is a movie rewatchable? But I mean, I liked what's in that movie. I mean, he starts playing. He gets the kids to play his rock, starting at the school. Each one. I mean. Well, okay, the purpose is not to talk about School of Rock. Okay, if you want to talk, you made me watch Iron Man.
I didn't make you do anything.
Well, you asked me to do it, and I do it.
Thank you.
I'm counting on you to watch some movies, too.
Do you want me to start with Bananas, or do you want me to finish Ace in the Hole?
Very easy movies to watch. You know what? You should watch Bananas. And by the way, you know what? AJ still has my copy of Bananas. And
that's between you and AJ, buddy.
There's many
I
movie.
saw Bananas is on Netflix, so I
Well,
can watch it.
yeah, I think that's a great movie to watch. It should be very funny. Anyway, Annie Hall is the movie you should really watch,
Okay.
and then Match Point. And I don't know if I'm telling you to watch the guy's
But
best movie.
you want me to start with Bananas or Annie Hall?
Yeah, whatever's available. Annie Hall should be on some streaming service. Uh, I
But
could
not
tell
Ace in the Hole.
you should also watch Ace in the Hole.
Tell me where to start, Daniel.
Do whatever you want as long as you watch them.
Doing whatever I want has gotten us to this point where I still have your movie years later.
Well, you got to make room in your life for good movies. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway,
Anyway,
what were you trying to get me to see by watching this movie Iron Man
you're
again?
just you're not about any of it, huh? It wasn't exciting. You didn't appreciate the performance of Robert Downey Jr. or any of the rest of the cast. I mean, there were some talented actors for sure. Again, it's a superhero movie, so it might not have as much substance as some of the things that were on your list before, although Terminator was on there.
It's I don't know. You say this thing about acting, and surprisingly for some, although I said this a little bit before when we were talking about the acting class, here I had loved movies for so long and had never, acting was somehow not the biggest thing for me in movies. Quite a few of the directors I know who I like have said, the way Hitchcock uses actors, he couldn't give less of a damn about acting. He thinks they're there to just deliver exactly the thing he had in his head. He wants them to do it in just this way, and he doesn't care anything more about them or what they feel or anything. This is totally opposite from the way, we learned what acting is about and how one should communicate with actors. And similarly, Kubrick.
Yeah, didn't Hitchcock have a very mixed success in relationships with his coworker, or not coworkers, but
there are stories
the
of
actors on
people
his
who didn't
film?
like. Well, I think because he put some actors and actresses through some bad times, especially the woman in The Birds. When I think people didn't realize how dangerous it was to put her in a room where actual birds were flying at her.
Wasn't that the premise of the film?
Yes, but it was a dangerous thing to do.
Right? No. That's what I'm saying. Isn't that the premise of the film, that it's dangerous to be swarmed by flocks of birds?
Yeah, but they didn't seem to appreciate how shooting the particular shot that they did would be very difficult. I guess.
Or maybe he did.
Or maybe he did, though that would be bad. I guess it's very hard. It's very hard, I think, this is a sort of an aside. It's very hard to say what good acting is, I think. When they give awards for acting, it's just like it's acting that you noticed. It's often acting that calls attention to itself. It's like, when you see that this person did a biopic and they had to change everything about themselves, and then you see, like that's that actor, but doing that character, people note that as impressive. It seems to be impressive when they have a big moment where they cry. It seems to be impressive when they, demonstrate another skill. I mean, Natalie Portman had to do all that ballet in in Black Swan.
Okay.
But sometimes really effective acting is acting that doesn't call attention to itself. It's sort of like
Sure.
I think I've said this to you before about like the costumes. They give award for best costumes. It's always the biggest costumes.
You think so?
Pretty much always. And one of the costume designers, I give her a lot of credit. I forget who it was at which Academy Awards. She almost said like this was her second award. And she was almost saying like, I was sort of set up to get this award because of the movie that I did, which was a period piece with these big costumes, and saying like, I don't think people appreciate that there's a lot of costume designers in this industry that design costumes that so perfectly fit in with that do what they're supposed to do that you don't notice. The costumes don't say no, they weren't meant to.
But isn't
they serve the movie, and that's some good costume design. And so there's all kinds of things that actors do that we don't give credit for. I think we recognize what we think of as bad acting when we really think like when there's a separation, we know that it's a person doing the acting, and they're not, and we see through this character, through the illusion.
Sure. Right. There's no suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, but that's not the only way that acting might just not be very effective. And I just have to say, in this Iron Man, I mean, yeah, there's Gwyneth Paltrow and Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges, but Jeff Bridges is this, I think, absurd, over-the-top kind of guy. You could tell in his speeches, it's sort of telegraphed that he's the bad guy. And I don't know. I didn't feel much from him. I didn't feel much from any of these people. And there's only one scene. It's very ambiguous about the relationship between Tony Stark and Pepper Potts. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really amount to anything. He's sort of and he's ambivalent about kissing her. And I don't know, was that supposed to be romantic, or I don't know. It's doing nothing. It's doing nothing for me. That part.
You don't know.
Acting is not I don't think the acting is the draw of Iron Man.
Okay, so what's the draw to Iron Man?
Well, that you might not like what I have to say, and I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to try to diagnose. What people.
I want to hear. I want to hear your thoughts, though.
Well, because of course, I don't like it. And so many people like it. And if I say, well, people only like it for some reason that suggests that they have bad reasons, they're probably not going to like what I have to say. But, I think what psychologically is going on that's drawing people to these movies, and probably none of what I'm saying is,
but we're not talking about these movies. Let's just talk about the one movie.
The one movie, Iron Man. Well,
Iron Man. Let's just talk about.
Very difficult some of it has to be like hype, as you say, and people who want to see realized on screen an intellectual property they're already familiar with, a character, something. I'll admit, the way I just I loved Harry Potter so much and was so invested in that all I wanted to do was somehow see that thing realized on the screen with actors and in a setting, which is admittedly not the greatest aspiration for film, right? But that's hard for me to believe with a movie like Iron Man, because Iron Man is not one of the most popular characters. So who was the audience? How many people out there were like demanding an Iron Man movie?
Well, there were some, I'm sure, but I think that speaks more to the team that put it together, that they took something that wasn't the forefront, like fan favorite, and turned it into the flagship of the entire franchise.
Well, they somehow capitalized on this hype machine. Maybe people were already so.
This was pre-hype machine, Daniel. This was.
But they were so invested in
Disney
Marvel.
didn't own it at this point. It was Jon Favreau saying, "I want to make an Iron Man movie," who's also seen success with The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've tapped into The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
Did the Jungle Book. I think he did The Lion King too, the live actions of both of the live action animated.
Okay, I didn't see those, but of course the concept of doing that offended me. I think we already talked about. I don't know. Yes, I think I understand how people get drawn into wanting to see realized on screen the thing that they were the story or character they were already invested in. Then again, I don't know what was the draw of the Iron Man in the originally. In that YouTube thing you showed me, they said there was an Iron Man cartoon back in the 60s. I had never heard of Iron Man.
I didn't know about the 60s cartoon. I saw there's one in the 90s. I saw.
Oh, really? I remember
watching that a little bit.
Well,
And I wasn't a big fan of Iron Man. I didn't like him. I didn't like the character.
well,
Robert Downey Jr. though owned it so much. You can't not buy into it, in my opinion.
well, I didn't buy into it. So I think if I didn't say this before, I think that superhero movies have such a basic problem with storytelling, because when you have someone with these fictional powers that they're able to do things that people can't do, there's a remove from reality of what it's going to tell us about real life. And not only that, but it's also going to affect the story, because you're not going to have the same sense of danger.
Consequences.
Yeah, you're not going to have, it's not going to be the same calculus about what they're doing when we know that they have powers.
Except for again, Iron Man has no powers. He has the suit, obviously.
But the suit
But
allows them to do all sorts of things. I mean,
sure. And how does the movie end? What's the final confrontation? It's Tony Stark.
yeah,
His
with
suit's been torn apart.
yeah, but
Though you can't say that there weren't risks there.
And again, it's hard. Again, I can report that this battle at the end didn't do anything for me, and we can try to understand why. A lot of it is like, maybe it's that, I don't know. They're only rather than something I have some experience with. They're just sort of telling me, like, how powerful is each iron suit, and what really can they do or not. It seems like they have a lot of leeway there. Look at if I give you an example of a much more compelling, thrilling fight. You ever see the movie Eastern Promises? Eastern Promises is a David Cronenberg movie with Viggo Mortensen, and I forget the whole plot. I know that he is trying to he's trying to get into the Russian mob, very dangerous shadow.
Trying to infiltrate or trying to become part of?
I forget. I know he's undercover. I forget when in the story they reveal that, so maybe I'm giving a spoiler alert here. But anyway, at one point, I forget the circumstances, but someone doesn't like him, and he is alone in a Turkish bath, Russian bathhouse, whatever kind of bathhouse.
Getting a schwitz, yeah.
Yeah, he just has a towel, and
You've been to those? You've been to one of those?
I have not.
Gone to a schwitz?
No,
Seems
and I
fascinating to me.
I should. I came from the gym, and I haven't been. Actually, they closed the sauna, well, during COVID, but I wasn't taking advantage of it before. I should do some of these things, but too lazy. Anyway.
You digress. Sorry.
Yes, he's in there, and these two big menacing guys come in, and they have knives. And they come up, and they're gonna stab him to death, and he has to fight them both. And all he has is he's gonna be naked. There are times when he has to, possibly allow himself to be stabbed somewhere, so he won't be stabbed elsewhere, and so he can get the other guy. Unbelievable. This is a fight. This was intense. This was something. It's like you watch, and you're just like floored. This is what cinema is for.
Captain America: Winter Soldier is praised as the best Marvel movie action-wise. So if we're just grading it on action, but I do want to bring up that, you talk about these superheroes having powers, and they're not being real odds or like stakes or consequences because they're superhuman. They're going to survive, sort of thing. You can say that about of most action movies with the title character on the movie poster. We didn't think John McClane was going to die at any point in Die Hard, right?
Well, okay. I mean, you can think about it that way. I think success.
I think the fact that it's a superhero movie and you're not allowing that suspension of disbelief because it's a superhero movie. No, but any action movie, the hero's not going to die most of the time.
That's a cerebral thing. I have a counter to that, though. I think the superhero movies go further because they do another thing, another part of the film.
And again, you've only seen 2 MCU movies out of 23.
Oh, but they do it in all the superhero movies. Let me tell you. Here's the kind of scene that they show you. Let me tell you. They will always give you a scene early on to establish just how powerful the powerful guy is. Look what they can do. Okay.
The hero or the villain?
The hero usually, well, they'll also have to do that with they also do that with the villains too. They need to tell you these things, right? I mean, you can see why, you can understand why, because they need to do all this other stuff in order to communicate the difficulty or the stakes, because it's not being done because it's so detached from actual reality. So anyway, they will show you how Black Panther can just take down a whole convoy. You don't want, you're shaking your head, but
We're
they
not
did it.
talking about Black Panther. You got to give us some more time.
Well, this is got to give it. Hey, it's had its time.
Chadwick Boseman. We're getting Chadwick Boseman his time.
I don't know.
Just passed.
Yeah, I know, but what does that have to do with talking about the movie? Whatever. Anyway, what was I saying? They always show you in Iron Man, he goes and he saves the whole village, and he's so powerful. No one can stop him. It just changed.
No mere mortal.
Yeah, but
Stop it.
They're actually working against the effectiveness of their own story by doing this kind of sensationalism, this kind of thing which is meant to impress you, is actually defeating you because it's lessening the impact of what comes later.
The conflict between the hero and the villain?
Yeah, well, because it takes away, once we get the sense that this person can do, all sorts of things, especially if it's effortless, right? I think that the filmmaker thinks he's doing us a great big favor, because look at how impressive, as though that's supposed to have some emotional impact on me to see someone doing something incredible. I mean, I only want to see that. I want to see incredible things, but I want to see things that are somehow earned, right? I want to know that it had to come with some difficulty. Otherwise, what am I supposed to take from that? So, I mean, that's why I'm somewhat more inclined to, like, I don't know, some of the stuff in John Wick. I mean, they really have him almost evenly matched. Some of it is.
Do you think John Wick's going to die in any of the John Wicks?
But that's an intellectual, I'm not thinking that at the time, because the setting in which he's in communicates so clearly to me the danger and difficulty that he will have to overcome. And I'm excited to see that he's really going to have to be good if he's facing 3 guys with throwing knives and he doesn't have any knives, like he's going to have to do something awesome to beat him, and it delivers. Right, that's what I'm getting from a John Wick. It's not quite the same kind of scare and thrill and worry that he's really not going to make it in Eastern Promises. And we can, of course, talk. Something that's great. People have talked about this about Game of Thrones, which is that in that storytelling, he's managed to establish that he's breaking with the convention that the main characters live. Right, so you actually, there really is that danger. He needed to break with a convention of storytelling in order to, prepare you to view these things as like, oh, anything can happen.
You seem like a Peter Baelish guy to me.
Well, I have actually said that to you before. That's my guy in that series.
Yeah.
So, what am I saying? And Iron Man does these things. Why do people like it? Because
was there no comedy? Did you not laugh at any of the moments?
I didn't laugh. I know they're always throwing in these silly lines and how Pepper Potts.
Well, the silly lines. No, not even that. Just him when he's first developing the machine, or the suit, and he flies into something and the robot hits him with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, cutesy stuff.
That wasn't funny. No laughs.
Never did it for me. Not here. Not in Pixar movies, where it's basically the same thing.
Maybe you don't like comedy. I don't know.
You watch Bananas. I love comedy. I think that the superhero thing. Here's
you watch the post-credit scene?
Yes, I did watch the post-credit scene, and only a person who.
You seem so upset. You seem so upset, dude.
Not upset. I was able to fast forward, which I wouldn't have been able to do in a
Perfect.
theater.
Perfect.
I'm Nick Fury. I mean, I work for Shield. Only a person, only a
Director.
person who's already invested very heavily.
Not true.
Not true?
You okay. Let's say you're not invested heavily. You have no idea who that is. You just watched this 2-hour movie with all these characters, the credits roll, then all of a sudden this mysterious eye-patched individual, badass Sam Jackson, introduces himself,
Only his
and
friend.
you're left with nothing but questions. You're like, he mentions other superheroes, not by name. Who is Nick Fury? What is Shield? You know what those all are?
No,
Or you just didn't care to find out?
But they telegraphed this thing throughout the movie. You know, there was the guy, and he gives this acronym. And
I don't think it's telegraphing. I think it's a continuation of that story, Daniel.
Yes. I know they're setting up all these other movies. You can tell this is the way they set up these other movies. And I can sort of tell the way they did this, the way they set it up with the acronym, and then they finally revealed that it stands for SHIELD. And the way they said that, I can sort of tell that in the wider world, that people who know these comic books, that's a thing they were going to be looking for. And by
fan
the way,
service is part of these movies. Fan service is part of these movies.
It's the same thing that I didn't like about one of these recent James Bond movies where, like, oh, he's back to having the old car that, you know, Sean Connery used to drive. And like that's supposed to be a thriller. Or when we recognize, you know, this or that person coming in, right? I don't know. This is it's such a cheap thrill. And the thing that I was going to say, what else is a cheap thrill, is I think that this whole superhero thing, I imagine, must come from, it's a kind of wish fulfillment. This is my theory. It's like you wish you could be able to do this and that and fly and run fast and beat up enemies. And you think that it's going to be a great story if you put that on screen. But for the other reasons I mentioned, it's not going to be a great story because it's never going to be as impactful as the thing that actually hits you, because there's a level of identification and a sense of urgency and stakes and danger, and that is the actual stuff of what draws you in to a story or a situation. That is my big overall theory of why these as stories don't work. And then there's it's harder to explain, but there's the technical stuff of the kind of thing, you know, you can just tell just from the way it's shot that it's not the kind of movie I want to see. All these like crane shots coming in, and Tony Stark just like.
What are you doing with your arms right now?
He's showing himself off. It's just like.
That's the ego. That's the ego of Tony Stark. It's part of the character.
I did watch a little bit just to. Maybe that shot I'm thinking of is actually from Iron Man 2. I watched the first like 15 minutes of that.
Come on, you're going out of order. You can't do that.
I did the first one, and then it's not out of order.
It's in order as far as Iron Mans go. It's out of order as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh no, I have to watch the whole. I have to watch every movie of the Marvel Universe. I don't know. You'd have to give me a list or something.
I will. The next one is Captain America, the First Avenger.
Oh my God.
Chris Evans. Tommy Lee Jones.
You know what? I can't.
The guy from Lord of the Rings. The elf. The head elf. Agent Smith from
or Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving.
I guess I don't care who's in it. I was just thinking to myself that another problem on top of all the other problems I've mentioned about why it's not going to be the most compelling story is that these origin stories movies are also plagued, also have a basic problem in their storytelling. They really crucially depend on the audience caring already to see this thing happen, because
I disagree.
You disagree? Because it's so it's like, you're telling a story which has to get to a certain place, and we know what that place is. You're just sort of explaining how did Tony Stark become Iron Man, and he has to
Daniel, how
become
did the
Iron Man.
Titanic sink?
But it wasn't just about the Titanic sinking, because there was another story going on and against that backdrop. The problem here in these superhero movies is they have to layer on another conflict with the origin story, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the normal arc. Is what I'm saying. I guess I don't know. It'd be a little bit difficult to try to explain how everything works and why. Maybe I don't have it all figured out. But do you see how I'm saying that when you tell this origin story, you're a little bit it's a different purpose than a normal story, because it's like we already have to care that this person gets to a certain place, and you know what? That place is not solving the problem. There has to be another problem. And then where do you introduce that problem into the story? So now there's multiple things going on, and neither one is the main thing of importance.
You're going to hate all the Marvel movies.
That's why I thought maybe if I just went to Iron Man 2 when he's already, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe forget the origin story. Just
we need origin stories, brother. You gotta lay the foundation.
No, you don't. I mean, for example, I don't know if it's why, but I like The Dark Knight more than Batman Begins.
Maybe.
And by the way, those Christopher Nolan movies don't have those same kinds of shots and same kinds of story, like things they want to communicate and telegraph in that way.
Right. Batman doesn't have a suit.
He has a suit,
that's
not the point.
We know he's gonna. We believe he's at risk, real risk at times, and there's not going to be another Batman movie.
We do, and in a way that I don't feel about these other Iron Man or Black Panther or whatever, or Wonder Woman.
Thor.
I don't even know.
Captain America.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Captain America or Black Widow or the one with the Jeremy Renner one.
He doesn't have one. His name's Hawkeye, but he doesn't have his own movie. He's gonna have a Disney Plus series dropping this late this fall.
Do you see what I'm saying though about how I think these superhero movies? You're flawed from the get-go. By the way,
from the get-go,
flawed. It's just the wrong ingredients for a story from the get-go. And by the way, like Tarantino says the same thing about biopics, biography pictures. It's a difficult story to tell because people already, the arc of the real person's life. And yeah, you thought there was something interesting about that person's life, and you want to get that out. And it has the virtue of being real. That's also what you're banking on. But, real people's lives don't track with the kinds of devices, often artificial, that come into play in a story. Real people's lives don't have foreshadowing. Real people's lives don't have the clear presentation necessarily of the conflict or problem at this stage and the resolution at the end. They don't have the same kinds of points of mystery. So you can almost always see in these biopics, it's a kind of hagiography of this person, and you can tell like what are the real. It's anchored by the real moments because they happen at a certain time at a certain date. You can sort of tell based on the evidence of like what really happened and what they're sort of just making up in between,
adding to the story.
Yeah, and it's just, it will never provide you, it's almost doomed not to be able to provide you with the same kind of intensity of feeling that Tarantino likes to give you in his movies. Right, so I think,
don't know what to say to that. I mean, yeah.
I think he's right about that. I think that the sports movie is also similarly doomed because it's so clear, what has to happen, maybe, and it all comes down to the sport, which is the artificial thing. Maybe.
You don't like sports movies. You don't like superhero movies.
Yeah, and it's silly to even call that a genre. Yeah, these things which have these properties I think they're set up for bad storytelling is why I'm saying that I don't tend
Captain
to.
America, the first Avenger. That's your next one you got to watch.
Wait, so these are two different movies. So there's a Captain America movie, and then
No, it's Captain America, the first Avenger.
Oh, that is Captain America : the
Yes.
first Avenger.
Yes.
And what was that? Was that in 2009?
Well, I can look it up here for you. It was the next release, I believe.
And then when was the Avengers?
I'll look that all up right now.
2010.
Iron Man came out in 2008.
Yeah.
Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton came out in 2008. Actually, Captain America wasn't until 2011.
When was Iron Man?
So you're doing the right thing, actually. The release not chronological, the release order: Iron Man, Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. So you should watch that one next. And then Iron Man 2, and then Thor, and then Captain America, and then the Avengers. 2012 was the Avengers.
Goodness gracious me. I have to watch this movie about the guy who, when he becomes, I don't know, did something happen to him? And then when he becomes mad, he becomes the Hulk.
Are you asking ironically because you just described what the Hulk is?
All the movies I'm recommending to you, I mean, I can set them up. I can explain to you. I could give you a pitch that should make it why you want to watch this movie. Why do I want to watch the Hulk?
The Incredible Hulk follows Bruce Banner on the run from General Thunderbolt Ross and the U.S. military. Realizing he can't ever hope to control or contain the Hulk, Ross decides to create his own version of the Hulk using another soldier, but he quickly loses control. The Incredible Hulk stars Edward Norton, but Mark Ruffalo replaced him in 2012 and has been the big green man ever since.
Yeah. Well, there's another, that description starts to bring me down another road of what I think is silly about these superhero movies, when the story ends up becoming more and more about what they have to do in relation to their powers and the super stuff that doesn't really exist. You know, then you're further and further down the road of like, not now even the thing driving the plot is not based on reality.
Reality in their universe. I mean,
yeah, I know reality in their universe, but do you see what I'm saying about how, like, you know, if I see a movie, if there's a movie where
have you never gotten angry enough to feel like a giant green rage monster?
This is the wish fulfillment here. This is the wish fulfillment coming through. It's like people, you get so angry, you wish that you had the power to smash everything and beat, you not have to worry about, you know, consequences that would come down on your head. But okay, you know, if you're going to make a movie where that's the premise, now you have to, okay, you know, I'm willing to go with you that far to see, well, what consequence, what is it that you want to tell me that actually connects to my real life and the actual conditions of life, you know, what do you have to tell me about that? Other than, you know, well, now he has the power, he's going to fight bad guys and do all the kinds of things that, you know, you certainly couldn't do, and now you can do because we're in this fictional world, you can do it, and we're just going to play out not something that means something to me, but the kind of very simple-minded morality play that you could have done otherwise. That's the other part of it that I just don't care about or buy into.
The morality.
Yeah, it's very simple. It doesn't really, it doesn't ask of us anything like, what do we really think here? It's very clear who's good, bad, and good and bad fight, and they don't fight in a way that's actually is how these things really get played out. It's really just personified in people using their powers to fight each other, which is even further at a remove.
This is why you're a prequels fan. You love Palpatine.
I don't know if this.
But again, I'm gonna keep harping on. You've seen 2 of these movies out of order, out of context. Stay with it. Iron Man 2.
I
That's
don't
your
think
next
that, I
assignment.
don't think that's totally fair to say because I've seen. Let's go through. I saw the. I saw
Out
the.
of the MCU, out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you've seen Iron Man and Black Panther.
So they decided to call it that. I saw the Christopher Reeve Superman movies.
Nope.
Nope. I saw the Tim
You mean the
Burton
ones that Christopher
Batman.
Reeves that came out 35 years before these did?
Yeah, and what's the difference? That now they have the CGI to make it look a little fancier. The storytelling was not essentially different. I mean, they do a few things with some more
Apples and oranges, though. Apples and oranges. We're not talking about Christopher Reeve's Superman. We're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which starts with Iron Man in 2008 and moves forward to present day.
Boy, they're so quick to disavow these other ones.
Well, that's Marvel and DC. Those aren't even the same universe. Those beings don't exist in the same realm.
What the hell does it matter? We're talking about movies and what's in a movie. Now, I don't know. You're trying to tell me I should believe in a movie because of some bigger story, but am I supposed to care about this whole bigger thing? I mean, it's not like
It's not.
it's not the equal of Game of Thrones, where yes, there are lots of characters, but they really do, and they're all playing the Game of Thrones
Daniel,
together.
but your perspective is you've seen all of Game of Thrones, and you allowed them time to build that world and make those connections and interconnectivity. You haven't done that with the MCU, so I don't think it's fair for you to be casting judgment on it when you haven't given it a chance. Like, obviously, you're not going to see all these connections and stuff if you've only watched one of the film. Did you feel this way after one episode of Game of Thrones?
They set up a lot of good stuff in that first episode of Game of Thrones. You can see there was a lot of who the characters were and what the world was, and a lot of what the conflict coming and what the stakes were, all in that first episode. I have to give them a lot of credit. And in the first book, it's even more so.
How'd that series end? How did Game of Thrones end?
How did it end? Well, I'm in the books.
Not story-wise. Not story.
Book
like,
is,
I know what happened, but well, you're talking about Game of Thrones, the show, not the books. I mean,
okay. When I talk about the show, it's I don't hate the final seasons as much as some other people do. I do recognize there are some differences. I feel like in the storytelling of what we're learning, we're learning less new stuff about the world, the way that it had built up. I really like this dynamic in Game of Thrones, where he's constantly teaching us. There's a moral world, you could say, in Game of Thrones, where he's constantly teaching us that we have to throw away our notions that come from post Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution to the way things really work. That this is how power, people, and what they really want, and what will really happen if you do this or that. Who's really going to win or lose when it comes right down to it? Knowledge is power. Power is power, right? Or whatever happens. So and once you teach us one thing and you get people invested in the world, and suddenly all these people our age who are so human rights and with their progressive agenda, suddenly they're paying attention to the great houses and rules of inheritance that prevailed in the Middle Ages and whatnot, to understand what's going on. I don't know how they separate those two things. Why can't they realize that almost all of human history has been like Game of Thrones?
With the ice zombies and the dragons?
It is exaggerate. Game of Thrones is performed in fiction. You are allowed to transmute things. One of the transfer is exaggeration, is extension. But it all speaks to the kinds of things that really happened. There really were Germans and then Huns behind them, and then Mongols. Right? They were really coming.
And which one had dragons?
And there's not dragons, but there are, you know, serious weapons. There was Greek fire. There was, you know, so, you know, it's, there are exaggerations. There are, you know, substitutions and conjoin, you know, combining certain things. But basically, you could almost read Game of Thrones as history or watch that show as that gives you a better impression of how things really were throughout a lot of history, better than almost just like, you know, reading the book that's just the facts. Just you need to read between the lines to get this kind of story.
Embellish a little bit.
That's some of what I love about Game of Thrones. And I mean, maybe we bring up Game of Thrones, we didn't say this, but I know that George Martin has talked about that he was inspired by this Marvel universe, which is so strange to me. I think that he really, you know, if he had the personality of Lars von Trier, the kind of guy who declares after he made Antichrist or Melancholia that he is the greatest filmmaker today and doing great things, I think if he were actually more honest, he should say that he has done something that goes well beyond the conventions of so-called fantasy or genre to make.
We're talking about George R. R. Martin.
Yeah, and shouldn't and need not say anything. You know, it's so much bigger and better and deeper than a thing like the Lord of the Rings, which is more like the Lord of the Rings is more like the Ring opera or something, but the Song of Ice and Fire is more like these Icelandic sagas and an actual history.
Why is The Lord of the Rings like an opera?
Because it's just the epic and not the details of people's lives, not the dynamic of power. It's not interested in any of the same things that Game of Thrones is interested in. It's just the canonical fairy tale, more like, is all I'm saying there. And the appeal of that to me is somewhat less. Okay, but to come back to the Marvel thing, I mean, he did say something about how maybe maybe there's something to these comic books that I'm not reading. When you have all these characters and there are stories that involve them, and maybe over time you come to see the same character in a different light. Sometimes throughout one season, some character is so-called good, and in another season they're bad.
I like that you put good and bad in quotes.
Yeah, but you see them, they're involved in different ways, and there are rearrangements of these things. And I don't know, there was something to that I liked. You know what, I even, during one of these winter breaks when I had nothing to do, I watched a lot of this show on NBC, Heroes. Never saw it, which had that to it if you watch multiple seasons of it. And there's something interesting about that kind of storytelling, much more so than I'm getting from these movies you're telling me about.
Well, the two movies that you've watched.
Come on, I mean, the Spider-Man movies don't count, and the 2006 Superman doesn't count, and the Batman movies I saw don't count, and
Not as far as interconnectivity and world building and storytelling across multiple movies. No, they don't count.
but what is that really what matters so much? Why does that matter?
Well, you were just praising that through Game of Thrones, but
Well, because Game of Thrones is one big
again,
story.
which you've seen in its entirety, and now you're reading the books. But again, you've watched two. What if you read 2 chapters of A Song of Fire and Ice and then just put it down?
Well, I wouldn't do it, but you know what? The Song of Ice and Fire was good. Yeah, I mean, you do need to hook people, I guess. But what am I saying? I just think that there should be something worthwhile in any one of these movies. It can't just be that, well, I'm actually more like the Star Wars sequels, which I think were a national embarrassment, which I saw because, you know what, it's part of the cultural conversation. I've already seen so many of these movies. I just better go see it. And
That was the attitude you had going into the movie?
by the time I was seeing 8, I didn't know what I'd be seeing with 7. I had my suspicions, but
You saw 9?
yes, I saw 9.
Why'd you continue to watch if you didn't like it?
As I just said, it's like part of the cultural conversation. Sometimes I wonder if I saw the movie just to complain about it.
I wonder that too.
It makes me so. One of the other things I mentioned in that trends of the 2010s that worries me is how much American movies need make so much of their money in China and India, but China especially. And these are the movies that we send abroad, because actually China has a restriction at how many movies we can send there. So we pick, okay, we'll send you these movies. And what are we picking? First of all,
who makes those decisions?
I think studio heads actually it's sort of fun. Yeah, I don't know about some trade commission or something, but I believe each studio probably only gets to send a couple of movies, and they make
Trade Federation.
They knew George Lucas also had read some history. I think the prequels don't get enough credit as having the same kind of political awareness and sensibility that Game of Thrones has. It's not as good as Game of Thrones, but that's really how this war would happen.
Why do you admire Palpatine? Tell me why you're a Palpatine guy.
You got to respect. Hey, it's the same reason I like this Peter Baelish. This guy came to power the way he knew he could. He learned the secrets of Darth Plagueis, I think. But it's not enough. He
was also born with superpowers.
No. I don't believe he was born. Well, I don't know this.
Being able to manipulate the Force.
I don't know the lore. The point. Look, what I see.
He's a Sith. What are you talking about? He's a wizard. He's a space wizard.
I see a very compelling story, maybe
Very
based on the change in the Roman in Rome from the Republic to an empire, about this guy who concocted the whole thing. He becomes the senator from this very peaceful planet of Naboo, which I think he has good reason to think these people are a bunch of hippy dippy doodle heads thinking it's all about peace, and he engineers the war, gets the Trade Federation, who by the way represent I think aliens who are not given short shrift because they're not really human, to do a blockade on Naboo so he can make a proposal in the Senate to become the chancellor and start the war, so he can build an army, and he can actually run both armies at once until he controls everything, and then he can have both armies and then take power from the Jedi. I like that. I like that.
You're fond of that manipulation and.
Yeah, that's pretty clear what that story was, and then it's only thwarted because they come across this boy who has this special connection to the Force and whatever.
Thwarted? When was it thwarted?
The story in those prequels, as far as I remember, is that Palpatine was hoping that Amidala would sign something that they would lose the Battle of Naboo, which would give him the pretense to use his clone army against the Trade Federation, but he was thwarted in the end by the same by the same mistake that he actually makes later in Return of the Jedi, not counting on the cooperation between the different races, not counting on the humans of Naboo working with the Gungans to fight the droid army on the ground, and he also didn't count on their finding this Christ character of this Anakin with this special connection to the Force, this special pilot who could defeat the Trade Federation's ship in the sky. And ultimately what it does is it ends up delaying his plans 10 years, but creating a new, different kind of plan where he will hope to use this young apprentice and mold him to his own purposes. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to justify these prequels. I think the prequels take a lot of shit, and I think they should at least be acknowledged for George Lucas trying to tell us a real story, a story which had not been told in cinema in this way over the course of 3 movies, unlike what was done in the sequels. Which was just, what?
Sequels were a mess.
We have this property, and it's a big moneymaker because it's Star Wars. People know this property. It's a whole cultural event to see a Star Wars movie. And our only understanding, our only thing that we have in mind is just try to recapture the moment, the moments that we think people liked in the older movies, and let's forget all about those prequels, which were controversial.
Why do you think people go to see the same band or singers multiple times, like live? You know what I mean? Like if you saw like, Rolling Stones 20 years ago, why would you go see them again?
I wish I could see the Rolling Stones 50 years ago.
I'm just saying, but like there's a lot of people that go to the same show over and over.
Yeah, well, music sounds good. I want to hear music more than once.
Do you think that translates to film or storytelling, or just going to see Star Wars? I just want to see lightsabers on a giant screen. I want to hear the music. I want to see the credits, the intro credits roll up the screen, you know?
Yeah. Look, I think of those things that you're saying, I think the music is good. I think that intro fanfare is very powerful. I actually do think that first Star Wars was not only a major milestone for cinema history, but it has that movie Star Wars has at least 2 shots in it that are actually pretty famous in film history that had never been done before. I mean, you should also maybe even count that opening fanfare with the Star Wars and the scroll of what's going on. But that, you see one ship in space and it's like seems impressive, and then another ship that you're just seeing from underneath, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on. And that is a way with the cinematic image to convey something great and big that you've never seen before.
Mel Brooks was a big fan.
Nothing in the Marvel movies even comes close.
The two that you've seen?
To the impact, the 2 that I've seen. And then in the end, this Death Star run, the ship coming in and going in this trench, right? That shot has been put in a lot of other places, so people remember it, and no one had put a thing like that, that kind of almost like a roller coaster thing in first person in a movie before. And that's a major thing. And I love the score. And I think that going through space, even though basically Star Wars is in a lot of ways like a Western, or a lot of ways like some fantasy, is it really sci-fi? But the freedom to go from planet to planet, it brings a lightness to it. It's not an original story, but it's an original setting. It's an original way of, putting stuff on screen. Worthy of cinema.
Star Wars is.
The other ones, not
the
so
sequels.
Much. Especially 7, 8, and 9, where they didn't even have a story to tell us. They just...
Wait a minute. What about Empire and Return of the Jedi?
I have to say Empire and Return of the Jedi, which I did rewatch at some point. I don't know, they capture some of the same fun, and they continue, they clear up the story. I don't think that they really have the same impact that the first one has. And I actually feel the same way about the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies.
You preferred the first one.
I think they captured they sort of all the wow factor and all the the impressive creation of this world was all there in the first one, and then, well, by inertia you have to continue. You have to do the other 2. I think that actually the Game of Thrones battle scenes put the Lord of the Rings battle scenes to shame. They look old now. They're not as impressive.
The Battle of Helm's Deep you have to rewatch. That was pretty,
yeah, I did. That's what
pretty gnarly. And I don't know what it's called. The final the battle at Mordor, at the Doors of Mordor. That was pretty good.
They don't have a battle then. They have a battle at they have a battle at the
gates of Mordor.
Tirith. Why do I bother remembering all these?
Don't they have a battle at the gates of Mordor?
They go to the gates of Mordor and they bring out a whole orc army or something, but that's when the ring gets in the lava and the whole army somehow falls into hell or something. And
I don't know.
Maybe they do a little bit of sword fight. They charge, but I think it ends pretty quickly because Who the hell cares?
What
Okay,
am I thinking? No, I'm thinking of the what's the Final Kingdom?
yeah, you're thinking of the battle at the city at Minas
Yep,
Tirith.
you're absolutely right. That's what I was thinking of.
Whatever. I want to. I'd like to talk about
You're exhausted.
good movies.
We got 20 minutes,
What do you have?
23 minutes. I got to go to work today.
Oh yeah, and you're bartending
Bartend.
at the bar.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you're gonna watch the next Iron Man movie. I'll
oh,
watch Bananas
yes, you
or
should.
Ace in the Hole.
I mean, I feel like you'd watch Bananas on your own. I've told you to watch Ace in the just because it's a drama, not a comedy. A comedy like Bananas is just so fun to watch. I mean, watch in your spare time.
Okay.
It's not like Bananas is a revelation.
Give
that
me
will
some
change your
homework.
life.
Give me some assigned viewing. That's what I'm asking for here.
Okay, I'm telling you to watch
One thing.
just one thing.
Right now, you're gonna watch Iron Man 2. I'm gonna watch this.
All right, watch at least one of Woody Allen's comedies before you watch Annie Hall. Not for any, I don't know, for any good reason. I don't know, but in Bananas is a movie about this guy. Fielding Mellish is a screw up. A guy who just can't.
Let me watch it and form my own opinions, please.
But I'm just giving it. I'm
I'm gonna
selling
have to
you on
rent
it. I'm
this.
not going to tell you what happens in the
I'm
movie.
gonna have to rent Bananas for $4.
Worth it. The
I'm listening.
I showed Bananas when I was on a date, and it was very successful. Anyway,
The date was or Bananas?
both. I love Bananas. Anyway.
Was this when during your
Fielding
time?
Mellish.
Was this during your time in Ithaca?
Yeah. Anyway, Fielding Mellish. He is a college dropout and a screw up. He has a terrible job testing products. He has no business testing. He can't seem to succeed with women. This girl shows up at his door who is a college student who's into all these protests of the early 70s. And he pretends to get into that stuff for her sake. He couldn't give less of a damn, actually, but he just wants this girl, and he finally gets with her. But then she dumps him because she just decides
She finds out that he's being dishonest, and
she just decides he's a real nothing and whatever, and it breaks his heart. But he doesn't know what to do with his life, except they were already planning to go to this the island of San Marcos, to protest because they just had a right-wing dictator took over the government in a coup, and they were not supposed to like it. And somehow, he just goes. He has no business being there, and he's actually that government thinks they're going to kill him and use him for propaganda. But he gets swept up with the rebels, and somehow becomes this great rebel commander. It's such a funny movie.
yeah, you can relate to that.
Well, Bananas has
Reality.
through joke, through exaggeration. Sometimes, and I think this is the point of sarcasm, right? You're communicating the opposite of what you were saying, because in the way that you say it, putting forward the thing which is false makes so clear that idea is wrong. And it's sometimes that's not quite what Woody Allen is doing, but sometimes you're showing something it's not true, it's not real, but you have some way of getting at what's real. Okay, actually in this case about something else. It's not like he's flat out lying. But I see you've changed your name. I only just now. Daniel Rubin hates everything. You can tell I'm talking about something I really like though. Right now. Bananas has, you just tell me after you see Bananas, you're not gonna, what was the best moment of Bananas? I think there's a moment at the end of Bananas. I once heard an interview with my buddy Marty Scorsese. They asked him, could you pick?
When do you think he's going to be on the show?
Might take a while. what do you think was the greatest, if you could boil down your oeuvre to one shot, like what would be the shot that's this is Martin Scorsese?
Mhm.
And I was amazed that he answered, he must have been prepared for this question, because, or I don't know, or he really had this at his fingertips, because he answered immediately that the opening shot of Raging Bull, where Robert De Niro is just bouncing in slow motion, getting ready to fight. And you know what? That's a great answer. That's probably, that's what, you know what? That's a great shot. That speaks of what he's about. You can see there's something about to happen. There's something already tragic about this guy and the way he's preparing for this thing. I mean, there's a lot in that. And if you ask me that about Woody Allen, I actually think Woody Allen is quick to, he dismisses, I think, a lot of his early comedies, but I think that the greatest thing about Woody Allen, the thing that sums up Woody Allen, is actually in Bananas. In this scene towards the end of the movie, when he returns and he sees that girl again.
You're gonna ruin this for me.
I don't want to ruin it. So
You've already told me he returns and he encounters the girl again.
Is that
I'll
too
watch it. I'll watch it.
much of a problem? But the whole point is to try to get you to prepare you to watch Annie Hall, which you really shouldn't need any preparation for anyway. And you should really just be taking all of my recommendations. What are you doing? There's COVID. You could watch, how many movies can you watch in a week?
Not many, man. I've been working in the office and bartending, so I've been.
Man who cares about movies? I mean, at night.
At night? I mean, again, like I've been working 2 nights, 3 nights a week sometimes, and then, maybe having dinner with a friend every once in a while.
Well, man must make room in his life for good movies, I say. It takes a lot, you know what, I'll grant it. You got to prepare yourself mentally. It's too easy in this time of Netflix and just streaming whatever to set yourself to watching a movie you haven't seen before, a movie that you're going to have to learn new characters.
Sure, yeah.
Setting.
Well, when I'm diving into a new movie, I want to make sure that it gets the attention that I want to give it and think it should have. Did you watch Knives Out?
I still have not seen Knives Out.
No, I finished that recently. That's on Amazon. I think it's on Amazon Prime. You should check that out. That was really, I liked it. I was a fan.
Knives Out. Yeah, I heard good things from some people.
But watch Iron Man 2 first.
So that's my job, is to see
Your
Iron
signed reading, your signed viewing is Iron Man 2, and I'll watch Bananas.
Oh, are you ever going to tell me a good movie? Are there any movies that you like that are not these superhero movies, and not Rocky or the God? Some movie that you like that other people don't know about?
A movie that I like that
Somebody
people
must
don't.
know about it, but
I don't know. Office Space. Have you seen Office Space? That was a big one back in the day. I'm a big Scarface fan. I really liked Scarface growing up. Obviously, you've seen
I
that.
do like Scarface.
Hold on. Let's grab the binder. You said you weren't sure if you'd seen Tombstone.
This is his binder of DVDs.
Oh yeah. Tombstone. You saw or did not see?
I guess I saw so many years ago. I must have been, at this point, it's like 23 years ago.
Tombstone's great.
And somehow I doubt that it stacks up in the list of.
Well, that's really fair of you to make a pass judgment on it
Without
without investigating it all.
Okay. All right.
Just some things that are popping off to me right now. Ace Ventura, I have that in here. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
I have seen that.
Okay.
That's a movie from my childhood that I know quite well.
Air Force One.
You know what? I saw that recently. Some of these movies you're naming are movies that are actually available for streaming, and it was like what I was about to say earlier. It's like sometimes it's easier to watch Ace Ventura or Air Force One than than watch Lars von
Yeah.
Trier's The House That Jack Built, which
I think that it's 100% easier, but
yeah.
Anger Management, Adam Sandler movie. Backdraft, the firefighter movie, that wasn't too bad. Armageddon.
I remember seeing one.
Basketball. Have you seen Basketball?
Yes, I have seen Basketball.
Beautiful Mind. Let's see.
The best movie I think
Boiler
about
Room.
competition was Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs.
I don't know Straw Dogs. What is this one? Bull Durham. You don't like
I
sports.
still haven't seen
movies.
that. You know, I have a list of movies that.
Blues
people
Brothers.
told
Did you
me-
like the Blues Brothers?
It's a fun movie.
That was a fun movie.
Nothing special to me.
What about Brick? I was really excited about
I
Brick,
have not
and
seen that.
no, it was fine. I got Casino here. Catch Me If You Can.
Those are two movies that I love, actually. Both of them.
Great. They're great movies. But you've already seen them. Cable Guy.
I haven't seen that.
Children of Men. You seen that?
Yeah, I saw Children of Men.
Citizen Kane's in here. I saw it on your list. Clerks is on your list. I have that here.
It was a big movie.
Collateral.
And Smith.
Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise.
No, I am.
No. Color of Money. Paul Newman. Pool player movie. No.
Haven't-
Color of Money you might like. It was actually a sequel to. Shoot. There was a much earlier movie where Paul Newman played the pool hustler. What's that?
I don't know, but I'm not a huge Paul Newman fan.
Not a Paul Newman guy? Days of Thunder.
Actually, I did see Days of
That's a
Thunder.
Jerry
That's with
Bruckheimer.
Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and they meet up, and she's
Yep.
his like doctor trying to convince him
Yep.
not to push his body to the limit, and he shows her by on her leg. He explains how racing works with staying behind the
Science.
guy.
Drafting.
There's some nice stuff in that movie.
I got The Departed here. What is this one? Deliverance. Devil's Advocate.
I haven't seen those.
No?
I've seen The
You
Departed.
might like Devil's Advocate. You might hate it. But wait, which haven't you seen? Deliverance?
I haven't seen Deliverance or The Devil's Advocate.
Dodgeball.
Wait, so the movies that you own, these are the movies that you think are great?
No, I'm just going through my list right now. Dog Day Afternoon.
That's a Sidney Lumet film that I've seen. I remember liking. But I love. Let's see. So Sidney Lumet, I really like Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Okay.
And Prince of the City. I remember liking Network. I might have to go through some of his movies again. I don't know if they do quite the same thing for me, but
I got Far and Away. I've got A Few Good Men. Have you seen A Few Good Men?
yeah, that's one of those dramas that's always
Not
on
impressed.
TV.
Huh?
It doesn't say. You know what? A Few Good Men. It's sort of like just an episode of Law and Order. Maybe like a better episode of Law and Order, but
But long before such a thing existed.
I guess.
The
I'll just say I'm
Fugitive.
completely on Jack Nicholson's side in that movie. He makes this speech that, it wasn't his fault that the kid had an undiagnosed heart condition and he just ordered the troops to, rough him up a bit.
Yes, it is. Goonies.
Yeah,
Grandma's
that's
Boy.
a movie from my childhood that I love.
Gran Torino's in here. I'm not a big fan. The Great Outdoors. John Candy, Dan Aykroyd.
I have not seen that movie.
It's a gem. Green Mile.
Dan Aykroyd is a real wacko.
Dan Aykroyd is?
I've seen him on Joe Rogan.
He's a wacko. Dan Aykroyd,
Yeah.
the comedian, the actor.
Well, he believes in a lot of stuff. A lot of
What does he believe in?
Bigfoot, UFO, aliens from here in history. I don't know. All the crazy stuff.
Invictus.
Didn't see
The
it.
Italian Job. Hitch is in here.
Hitch. I wish I had a
Roadhouse.
No, I have not seen Roadhouse.
Last Samurai. The Professional. You didn't like The Professional.
Oh, I
think
did not
lent
like
that
that
to you.
movie. What a stupid movie. Another movie where, hey, doesn't matter that it's not a superhero movie. It's about a super assassin who has ridiculous, oh, it's in the shadow, and then he'll just appear
Are you
here.
describing John Wick or are you describing The Professional?
I'm describing The Professional. John Wick,
okay.
everything he does is on screen.
Anyway.
Totally different. Totally different.
Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels.
That was a fun movie. And Snatch.
Matrix series, Lucky Number 11, some more Jim Carrey, Minority Report. See Minority Report?
Not one of Spielberg's best. I did actually see it recently somehow to remember because I hadn't seen it since it first came out.
Old school.
Can I point out, actually, you know what, it occurred to me, something I didn't say about this Iron Man movie, is that they're playing around, at various times with horror. Mm-hmm. Anytime that there are a couple of scenes in the movie where people are waiting around, they don't know what's coming because we sort of suspect maybe an Iron Man is about to show up, either the good guy at the beginning in the cave or the bad guy at the end. And, they're borrowing some of those storytelling devices and some of that film vocabulary from that other genre. But it's not done well. It's not done as well as any horror movie. It's in there, but it's not as good as in a horror movie. And by the way, it means, especially when we don't see Tony Stark as Iron Man in the beginning, the fact, as though we would get the sense of horror from the way these Afghan semi-Taliban kind of figures are like at the door with their guns, like wondering what's making the pounding or whatever, what killed those other guys. Inconsistent identification, because most of the movie you are meant to identify with Tony Stark, but you have to switch identification to have the mystery of what not knowing where he is or what's going on, and the fright of the other guys.
And that's a problem for you?
Just a storytelling thing, I think is
and
not good.
And in the Song of Fire and Ice, isn't every chapter a different perspective?
Yes, it's very difficult. There you're telling a different kind of story where you are switching, but in that chapter you have some identification, and sometimes he's trying to do it with someone you actually maybe don't have a high opinion of. Not always. I think you're really buying into when you have those chapters, at least of main characters. I don't like it, but actually I think you really have to justify inconsistent identification. I think it's much more powerful when there is consistent identification. Or consistently being at a remove.
I wonder, we'll have to do some digging, find some other examples of inconsistent presentation.
And at the same time, well, the identification is a major thing
Identification.
to talk about. Also in Iron Man, there's the mystery of like, who's the bad guy? Who's behind what's going on at the company with Tony Stark, and who's selling the weapons to the other bad guys. And it's not a well-done mystery. There are mysteries in other movies where you don't know what will happen. Mystery is something that doesn't really happen quite in real life the way it's effectively done in narrative, because there are all these conventions. You have to actually present us with the mystery. You also have to present us with the answer. The person who's really responsible has to be part of the story. Otherwise, to see it, oh, it's some person and we never introduce them in the whole movie, it will never have the same impact. But on the other hand, if you don't have other stuff to deflect, it's pretty well telegraphed who it's going to be. It's so clear from almost the first scene, almost from the first, when they show this montage at the beginning with Jeff Bridges as Obadiah. And it's sort of like, why are they introducing this character? Already from other movies, I'm attuned to thinking like, this guy's important. He could either be this or he's the bad guy. And by another scene, it's clear this guy has to be the bad guy. They haven't introduced another thing. And what would be the meaning of that other thing? So they have a little bit of mystery, and that's not done well in the storytelling. It's sort of a throwaway thing, just like all the other stuff in that movie.
You're really going to love the second one. Raging Bulls in here. I've got the Rambo franchise.
I haven't seen any of those.
What else we got here? Risky Business. That was fun.
I do remember that being a
Rounders.
Movie I liked. Rounders is a movie that you guys helped me to appreciate some more after playing a good amount of poker. I guess the
Terrible
first
poker
time
in
I
that
saw that movie, I did not know anything about poker, and I didn't understand like how people could live like this or what they were doing. And now I know poker a little bit better, and that movie makes more sense to me. And it's a fine movie about a guy with some ambitions and his degenerate friend. Uh, it's fine. I didn't like Molly's Game. This Aaron Sorkin.
I don't like Molly's Game either. Scent of a Woman.
I didn't make it through that movie.
Really? I like Scent of a Woman. Sandlot. I don't know if you've seen that.
That's a movie I like.
Shawshank.
Yes, a very good, very crowd-pleasing movie. I think that
You don't like Shawshank Redemption?
I do like it, and I think it's worth a long discussion. That was another rewatchables, and people love that movie, and I guess I fall into that trap. I do love that. I think it is a good movie.
Why is it a trap? It's not a trap.
Well, I think it's worth trying to tease out the ideology, what's behind that movie. Have you noticed? I think men like that movie. Women do not like that movie.
I haven't noticed that.
Have you ever asked any women whether they like that movie?
I don't know. Maybe.
There aren't really women in that movie. I really think that a lot of that movie speaks to a very particular kind of male mentality, especially of the beaten down, but feels like he doesn't belong in this situation, or that mentality that where you root for and identify with the main character in that movie. And it's a very satisfying movie, but I just wonder how deep or, what it's really saying. I don't know if I totally endorse all of what that movie is really about, but yes, I do love that movie.
Andy Dufresne. Signs is in here.
Oh, Signs by M. Night Shyamalan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Sin City.
That was its purpose all along. Oh.
Swing away. I've got Snatch, Snakes on a Plane.
I never saw Snakes on a Plane.
Snakes on a Plane is a lot of fun. Spaceballs, which is terrific.
Ugh.
You don't like Spaceballs?
It's been many years, but there's one when there's another movie when you talk to. I asked someone what's their favorite movie, and they say Spaceballs. I know this conversation isn't going anywhere.
Starship Troopers.
There's this. I like Paul Verhoeven. By the way, do you know Paul Verhoeven made a movie that completely was dismissed or went under people's radar just like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that I really liked. He hadn't made a movie in 10 years before that. He made this movie, Elle. You see Elle? Yeah, no one saw it. Great movie. This woman, he even learned French so he could make it with Isabelle Huppert and do it in French.
Nice.
I like the story so much.
Squirrels. Squirrels going crazy outside.
Squirrels in Ithaca.
You recommend it? You recommend Elle?
I do highly recommend that movie. This woman, sort of middle-aged woman in France. At the beginning of the movie, she's raped. Guy broke into her house, attacks her, rapes her, and then leaves, and she's just left there on the floor bleeding. There's some broken glass. And what can she do except get up, clean herself off, and go to work? We learn about this character that she is dealing with a lot of stuff, and she just will deal with this in her own way. Can't deal with it right now. We learn there are reasons why she might not want to go to the cops, and why she's with her business and her idiot son, and I just love this character and figuring out how she's going to approach this thing in her life. And it's not some absurd, very political female empowerment thing where it's like, look, you can become a superhero and fight your attacker. That's not it. And it's about a real character. I really like that movie.
I'll have to check it out. What else we got here? Taken.
Taken was a fun movie.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy.
I actually tried because they're fun. I've already seen them. It's easier to watch that than a good movie. I did try to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again, and I couldn't do it.
The Terminator I have 3 Terminator movies, 1, 2, and 3. Scarface. What's this here?
See, if
Tin
you like
Cup.
Scarface so much, why haven't you seen, like, say, other Brian De Palma movies?
I don't know.
See, I guess it occurred to me probably around that time that I first started watching the movies of Stanley Kubrick that the director makes the movie.
Tommy Boy. Chris Farley.
That's one where it's not the director who makes the movie. It's all on the shoulders of Chris Farley, and they tried to write a movie to showcase his.
Total Recall.
Not a good movie. I actually watched that recently. Oh, not good. It's very similar, actually, in spirit to the Running Man. That's other Arnold Schwarzenegger god awful movie.
So good.
And Eraser is a movie he made in the 90s, which is also similarly stupid. I do love the Terminator, the first 2 Terminators, and some other Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Trading Places. Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd.
I did see that.
Good one.
Not my favorite.
No. Troy.
Hills Cop.
2 for the Money.
I don't
Uncle Buck.
I don't even know what that is.
Uncle Buck's I almost said Chevy Chase, definitely not. It's a John Candy comedy, family comedy from like the late 80s, early 90s.
I don't have any real attachment to John Candy. These guys need to take care of themselves.
They are allowed to live their lives. 2 for the Money's Al Pacino and Matthew McConaughey.
They don't live very long. I mean,
I've got Up in the Air. That was that Clooney and Anna Kendrick movie. No.
George Clooney cannot make a good drama. He's trying.
V for Vendetta.
Didn't see it.
Vanilla Scott. You didn't see V for Vendetta? You would hate V for Vendetta.
Is that the Wachowski, formerly brothers, now the Wachowski sisters?
I don't know if it was the Wachowskis or not.
Boy, they really are on a thing like.
There's a new Matrix coming out, yeah.
Oppress us and make us live a certain way and curtail our freedom. It's just all they're about. I saw the Cloud Atlas.
I like Cloud Atlas. You didn't?
No. No, I did not.
The V for Vendetta was James McTeague.
Oh.
I'm pronouncing that right.
I don't.
The Wachowskis did the screenplay though.
Ah.
That's what they were connected. Vanilla Sky, Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz, right? Yeah.
2 cruises.
Different spellings. Vegas Vacation.
Probably did see Vegas Vacation. This is not a good comedy. Why not?
Wall Street.
I did see Wall Street.
How'd you feel about that?
Didn't leave a huge impression, I gotta say.
War of the Worlds. The Water Boy.
Didn't see.
What about Bob?
I do like What About Bob. I do like that and Groundhog Day. Those are 2 great Bill Murray comedies. I also like Quick Change.
Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I remember that. I guess I like Blazing Saddles.
Oh yeah.
Sort of.
Zoolander.
It's silly. I never saw Zoolander.
The Bourne trilogy.
I saw those. Some good fight choreography.
The Alien trilogy.
Oh, I did actually see Aliens recently and was not impressed.
What is wrong with you?
Oh, these guys, well, it's just not doing it as good. Yay, James Cameron. I actually liked, first of all, I did really like Titanic. I liked Terminator 2, and I think the first Terminator. I liked The Abyss.
The Abyss is nice.
The Abyss is better than Aliens. He has a very nice, sense. There's a lot going on, and there's good action and high urgency and high stakes, and then there's like a big thing at the end, a new experience. You really don't. You're going into the unknown in his movies, and I find them very impressive.
American Pie trilogy.
I remember that. Well, I saw the first one.
Okay.
That's not what
The
my
first,
high school experience was like, but
neither mine. The first three Mission Impossibles.
I
Unbreakable, M. Night Shyamalan.
did not. This M. Night Shyamalan just bothers me. I can't stand this guy.
Inside Man. Did you see that one?
I did see that.
Gerard
It's
Butler and
probably
Denzel.
my favorite of Spike Lee's movies. I mean, I also Do the Right Thing, and I did see his recent movie, The Five Bloods. Spike Lee's movies often
Critique
have
on that.
they're very sloppy, but they have all kind. They always have something of interest in them. I would love to keep talking about movies, although it's now 2:08, and I hope I'm not keeping you from your job.
Well, I do have to start preparing for my job. I got to work at 2:30, so I got to go shower and get dressed.
You can do that quick. I also have to shower. I came from the gym, and I have just been sitting here.
Working on your gains. What was our routine today?
Not a whole long routine. I just wanted to go and see if I could see this girl. But I'm always doing, I do some warm-up abs and stretching, and then I do something for my legs, deadlifting. I alternate deadlifting and squats, and then I always do upper body. I don't want to spend too much time in the gym, but just hit the big exercises.
Clanging and banging.
Yep. Gotta
When are we
be
gonna do this again?
top shape. You want to attract a mate. I learned that from the Nature Channel.
I'm gonna watch Bananas. You're gonna watch Iron Man 2.
I'm a little bit into it already, and just hitting me over the head with sensationalism and things I don't care about. I feel like I'm supposed to know who this Scarlett Johansson character is already, and
you're not.
I bet that someone who knows the comics recognizes her name, and because somehow I'm aware. Isn't she Black Widow? Isn't that the whole thing?
I guess you'll have to watch and find out.
I'll have to watch to find out. Bad movies.
How I thought they handled the transition of Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle.
Well, what a silly, stupid line. Well, they have to make some acknowledgement. I've seen it done worse, is all I'll say. Because
why is it a silly, stupid line? I thought it was handled perfectly.
Because it calls attention to itself. It's breaking the fourth wall. It's whatever. It does it, and whatever. They handled it worse. I remember, if you see the old Bond films, when they went from Sean Connery to a different guy, and they also changed the actor of the bad guy at the same time. And then it's extremely confusing because somehow these two characters, I know the characters met each other in the previous movie, and now they're in the same room, and they don't seem to acknowledge, they're not acknowledging that they recognize each other, even though that they probably should. But maybe it's because they're both being played by different people, and it's so confusing. And so, is this the kind of thing that people pay attention to? Am I the only one who notices it? I don't know. If you just turn your brain off, you just, whatever's going on, I guess it doesn't matter. But I don't know.
I don't think it's possible to turn your brain off.
To me, it matters if the characters. There's like certain stakes attached to whether this person will be in the same room as the other guy, whether they know each other or not. And I feel like they should know each other by the story, but the actors are different. So I don't know. Does that explain why? Forget it.
I've never dove into the old Bonds. I did the
They're good.
Pierce Brosnan, the Daniel Craigs I've tried to keep up with.
In Dr. No, the first one, which I like, it's not hitting you over the, it's not thrills all the time, but he's suave. You actually sort of go along with him and see how he handles all the different situations. That's something I like about that movie. How he handles women, how he handles, will there be anyone spying on me or breaking into my hotel room? All the stuff that they don't put in the other stuff. I do like the first 3 or 4, even 5 of these movies. And I like even when there's more fun action, but by the time you get to after that, you're really losing anything that was really special about that series, and it doesn't come back for a long time. I like GoldenEye. I saw that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see these movies, and maybe it'll inspire you to see a whole bunch more movies. I think you need to see a lot of movies, and then we can have another good discussion.
You watch Iron Man too.
Sure, that's the payment.
It is.
All right, good. I'll talk to you again.
Yeah. Let's. When do you want to do it again?
Well, we need a different. I think we need a different.
Shift it up. Less movies.
And I need to try finally get my math people do some of my other topics. Did you say you say fuck that?
I didn't say that.
Well, if you maybe if I can engage you on something else. You never read my the essay you said I should send to you. I only sent it to you because you said you would read it.
Yep. I'll get to it.
Maybe,
I can't read that and watch Bananas at the same time.
Well, you do what you got to do. If you have an idea for a single movie we should discuss in detail, maybe. I don't know if you want to get into some dangerous discussions of I don't know, current events or politics where we might really clash.
Whatever you want, Daniel. We can do that.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that out in the YouTube.
We could talk about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. That might be.
I pretty much told you what I pretty much told you what I have to say about that. I don't know. I could say a few more things about that movie. And you should see The King of Comedy, by the way. Also, yeah, that's a great Scorsese film. That Joker is almost like redoing The King of Comedy, but in a slightly different context. But I don't know. Those movies hit home for me as someone who was trying to do stand up. But maybe
are you still trying to do stand up?
Trying the best way I can here with this.
Okay.
Someday
Yeah.
stand up. Okay, let's re-adjourn.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. See ya.
Later.